Excuse me, sir. Hello, sir. Shall we start, sir?
Uh, Sir,
Yes,
shall
sir.
we start?
Yeah.
Okay. Good afternoon to everyone. On behalf of Department of Mechanical Engineering and IST chapter of Jyoti Engineering College, Thrissur, you all for the fourth session of 2 days international online workshop on thermal management of electronics. So today our chief guest person is Dr. G. Kumaresan, Associate Professor in Mechanical Engineering, Bannariamman Institute of Technology, Satyamangalam, Tamil Nadu, India. He is going to deliver his speech on heat dissipation in confined spaces using heat pipes. Dr. Kumaresan completed his PhD degree in 2015 from National Institute of Technology, Trichy. He has published 27 research articles in highly reputed international peer-reviewed journals and also published 2 patents. He completed his master degree from Government College of Technology, Coimbatore, and a bachelor degree from Anna University, Chennai. He is serving as a guest editor for numerous journals, including Elsewhere and Springer publications, and also an active review member of more than 12 international journals in Elsewhere, Springer, ASME, and Tyler and Francis. He has delivered several invited talks at various engineering institutions and industries. He is handling 2 research projects funded by TechUp as well as Department of Science and Technology, Government of India. His area of research includes phase change heat transfer, heat pipes, nanofluids, and computational fluid dynamics. He is recognized supervisor in Anna University and currently guiding 8 PhD scholars under his guidance. So with this short introduction, I invite Dr. G. Kumaresan to handle the session. Please welcome, sir.
Yeah. So thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much, Dipatraj, sir. And first of all, I thank the Jyoti Engineering College for inviting me to deliver this lecture. And so really, I am very much happy to join with you and taking part in this 2 days international workshop on thermal management of electronics, especially thermal management in the confined spaces of electronic devices. Okay. Hope you all are fine and doing well. Yeah. Today, yes, I'm going to interact with you on the topic heat dissipation in confined spaces, especially in electronic devices. Okay. So, guys, can you see me? Is the screen is visible to you?
Yes, sir, it is
Yeah.
visible.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. So heat dissipation in confined spaces using heat pipe heat exchanger, and this topic is it's really interesting. That heat pipe it's not like a ordinary heat exchanger, and this device is really interesting because of there are many signs behind that of working of heat pipe heat exchanger. Okay, and before going to the presentation, so let me watch a video that will give you a idea about how the heat pipe is working. It's just a small video, you just watch it.
The heat pipe. A heat pipe is a sealed copper tube that is under vacuum and can transfer heat rapidly away from the source. It has a very high effective thermal conductivity.
So heat pipe, it's a simple device. So it is also called as a effective superconductor. This device is working with the principle of phase change heat transfer. Sometimes it is also called as a two-phase heat transfer. And that heat pipe, it is made up of copper tube or maybe with aluminum tube, and which is having a high thermal conductivity. So preferably copper and aluminum metals are used in the heat pipe. So its conductivity is the matter. That's the main thing. So because we know that the copper and silver as well as the aluminum these metals are having very good thermal conductivity. As compared with that of these metals, heat pipes are having 20 to 200 times, as correct, 20 to 200 times higher thermal conductivity. So that's why these devices are called as superconductive devices, superconductors. These devices are mainly used in solar systems to acquire to increase the rate of heat transfer, and especially in electronic devices. Each and every unit of our laptops, or maybe the PCs, or maybe the workstations, IBM systems, this and all having heat pipe units. So because these heat pipes units are perform effectively, even though in a confined spaces, wherever the conventional systems are not working effectively. So we know that conventional systems we are using for the heat removal purposes, we are using the forced circulations with the help of some fan, or maybe we are using some conventional fluids like water, or maybe ethanol and some other things. This kind of devices that may be filled in a tube, or that may be working as a heat exchanger, and these devices are used to remove the heat from the confined spaces. As compared with that of as compared with the device, with these devices, if you are using the heat pipe, it can work effectively. It can able to remove the heat, dissipate the heat minimum 20 to 200 times better as compared with the with these devices.
Dissipate heat to a more convenient location through a capillary action. This effect.
Okay, the science behind how the heat pipes are working. So first, mainly it is because of the phase change heat transfer, and the second one is the capillary action. We know that capillary action is the ability of the movement of fluid even in a narrow spaces with a cohesive and adhesive forces. You just see
It's similar to placing a paper towel in coffee and watching the fluid rise off the paper towel.
You see how that fluid is moving. So moving in the narrow spaces in a paper. So this is called as capillary action or capillary force, with the help of capillary force.
Let's see construction of heat pipe.
So these two concepts are mainly used in the working principle of heat pipe, the phase change heat transfer and the capillary action. So this is about the construction of a heat pipe.
And sought.
Actually, that heat pipe, it is having three different sections. The first part, this area is called as evaporator section. In this part, the heat is absorbed by the system. Heat is absorbed from the surrounding by the system. Then the next part is called adiabatic section. Then the third one is called condenser unit. Okay. So in evaporator and condenser section, that phase change heat transfer is involved. In the evaporator section, the heat is absorbed by the system from the surrounding. Then that fluid present, okay, fluid in the form of liquid, okay, the present in the evaporator section, that may get evaporated, then which is converted as a vapor when that evaporator section which receives the heat. Okay, then when the evaporated vapor, while it is processed through this section, it is called as adiabatic section. This is simply act as a passage. That means there is no heat gain or loss when the fluid is flowing through this section. Then the last part is called the condenser unit. In the condenser unit, the heat absorbed from the evaporator section that is rejected to the atmosphere again. Okay, so here this evaporator section, it may be placed where we want to remove the heat from a confined spaces, or maybe in a high heat flux area. Then this adiabatic section we can extend with respect to our application. Okay, even it may not in a straight line. This adiabatic section may be turned as a U, or maybe in a L shape, or maybe in a T shape, or depends on our application. We can modify the shape of the adiabatic section. Okay, then in the another area, in the condenser unit, that heat is dissipated with the help of, with the aid of some external sources from the system. Okay, then automatically this fluid, okay, present in the condenser section, that
excuse me, sorry for the interruption.
Yeah, yes sir.
So once again, will you please share the screen? It's not visible.
Oh, sorry sir. So is it not visible, sir?
No, sir.
Oh. I think someone is sharing the screen, sir.
Once again, you please share.
No, someone of you is sharing the screen, sir. Yes, 1 second, sir. Sir, is it okay now?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you.
Sir, it's okay.
A heat pipe is constructed using a metal tube that is sealed under partial vacuum. Lining.
Yeah,
This-
you see, these are the three different sections of a heat pipe. This section is called evaporator, and this one is in between the section is called adiabatic. Then the last part, third section is called condenser unit. Okay, and I have, as I have already said you, in that evaporator unit, that heat is absorbed by the system, and that adiabatic section, it is simply act as a passage. Here, so nothing will be transferred from the system to the surrounding. Then in the condenser unit, again that fluid present in the vapor form, it may be condensed, then it is converted as a liquid with the help of some external layers. Okay, then with the help of this wick structure, the wick structure, and due to the capillary action, this fluid is again moving to the condenser section, even though that heat pipe, if it is fixed in 60, 75 or 90-degree orientation. So this is the main function of the capillary force. Okay, so that capillary, to create the capillary action, good capillary action, the heat pipe is made up of wick structure. Okay, that may be different types of wicks are there, even mesh, sintered, or maybe a crude, or maybe some fiber wick structures are there, and depends on the application, or depends on the load condition where we want to remove the heat. That wick structure, it may be vary, depends on the suitable conditions.
This is wick region. Here vapor flows. This is copper tube. Mechanism of heat transfer and heat. As heat is applied to the heat pipe surface and the evaporator region. As heat is applied.
Okay, guys, you just to watch this video. First, in the evaporator section, that heat is taken by the heat pipe from the surrounding.
To the heat pipe surface and the
Then this red color indicate, so it is the hot zone, that with the help of heat absorbing from the surrounding, the fluid present in the evaporator section, that may be converted as a vapor. Then that vapor is moving in the annular section of the heat pipe from the evaporator to the condenser section by the way of adiabatic section. You just see here. Yeah. Then here that heat sink, external heat sink is fixed in the condenser unit. This heat sink helps to remove the heat from the condenser section of heat pipe continuously. Then again this vapor is converted into liquid. Then that liquid is reaches to the evaporator section by the way of wick structure with the help of the capillary force. Okay, so here the driving force to operating the heat pipe. That heat pipe is a completely passive device. There is no need of any active sources to run the heat pipe. So it is completely a passive device. Okay. Then that amount of yeah, you see.
This phase change from the fluid to vapor creates pressure gradient. As pressure increases, the vapor will naturally flow into the cooler section of the heat pipe, that is condenser part. This is condenser. This is adiabatic region, by capillary action.
Okay, the driving force to run the heat pipe is, it is a pressure difference. This pressure difference is created in the heat pipe with the help of the evaporation process takes place in the evaporator section. That pressure gradient, which is driving the fluid from the evaporator section to the condenser section, then that returning of the fluid from the condenser to the evaporator section, that is takes place with the help of the capillary force. So it is a completely passive device. So it is one of the main advantage of using the heat pipe. There is no need of any external source to operate the heat pipe.
Each process circulation continue as long as the temperature gradient between the evaporator and condenser. Advantages of product per meter pumps. No moving parts and hence require minimum maintenance.
So these are the advantages of heat pipe, and it is called as a superconductor because its conductivity it is between 10,000 to 1 lakh watt per meter Kelvin, then there is no requirement of any additional source to run the heat pipe. It's like a pumping or pumping devices. Then there is no moving parts in the heat pipe. It's simply like a it's simply like a cylindrical tube. Then there is no maintenance required to run the heat pipe.
Location where there is available space for related heat sinks and airflow.
So you see here, so the things are mentioned here in the orange color. Okay, it's like a copper tube. This is all called heat pipes. Okay, that heat pipes not only in a cylindrical shape, even we can make the heat pipe in a trapezoidal or square or in any shape. Depends on our application.
They are completely silent and reversible in operation and require no external energy other than the thermal energy they transfer.
So okay guys, now you are having some idea about the heat pipe, how the heat pipe is working, and so what are the components of heat pipe, and what about the capillary force and pressure difference, pressure gradient, and phase change heat transfer, maybe evaporation or condensation. Okay, so let me enter into our topic. The heat dissipation in confined spaces using heat pipe heat exchangers. Then outline of the presentation is first introduction about the topic. Then method of nanofluid preparation. Here we are using the nanofluid to enhance the performance of heat pipe. So that's why we have added this topic, method of nanofluid preparation and its thermophysical properties. That is, there is a study of experimental study of thermophysical properties of nanofluid. Then fabrication of heat pipe. How the heat pipe is fabricated. Okay, it is somewhat difficult. It is not like a conventional method to fabricate any other heat exchangers. So the heat pipe is working under a vacuum pressure. So it needs some special devices. Yeah, hello. Excuse me. Yeah. It needs some external. It needs some special devices to fabricate the heat pipe. Then that method of experimentation. How that experimentation takes place to analyze the performance of heat pipe, then results and interpretation of the results, then different mechanisms involved in the heat pipe heat exchangers. Then main objective of why we are using the heat pipe in electronic devices. Okay. So usually this figure, if you want to dissipate the heat from electronic devices, this much of complicated fabrication is required. You see here the heat sink is attached here. Then excuse me. So anybody having doubt? Hello. I think some interruption is there. So please put off your mic, please. Okay. Yeah. Then so you see in this figure, so it is a conventional heat dissipation method in the confined spaces. Okay. So you see thermal grease and heat sink, thermal grease and TSV. ICD and heat dissipation, these systems are required to dissipate the heat from this area. Okay, and these are the thermal resistance of the thermal grease and additional materials we are using in the normal conventional methods. Okay, so even if you are fixing the heat pipe instead of this heat sink, so there is no need of fixing any kind of these devices. We can simply add the heat pipe. Even we can simply make a provision to insert here 2 mm or 3 mm tube. Also, we can dissipate the heat from the confined spaces. Okay, this is the main feature of the heat pipes. Using the heat pipes in the electronic devices. Okay. Then introduction of the topic. Extraction of heat from the confined spaces, especially from the high heat flux components, are the requirement of the day, and cooling of the electronic components is the very well-known example. The majority of the failure takes place in our electronic devices, commonly in our laptop or maybe in PCs. It is because of the devices are operating under high temperature. That means improper cooling devices, devices, improper cooling of the particular devices. So the current research of the electronic field focuses on the miniaturization of components, and it is also dramatically increase the heat flux. Okay. That miniaturization of the component, even we can see that nano size laptops are there at present. That is a low weight laptops. That laptops are made up of with only 1.4 kg or 1.5 kg. Okay, so whenever we are reducing the size of the electronic devices, that another one problem came, and that devices are operating under high heat flux. Okay, whenever you are minimizing the size, that rate of heat transfer, okay, that heat flux value, it may be increases. Okay, then at the particular condition, fan or microfin cooling systems, these are the conventional devices. These are not effective because these systems occupy considerable volume in the particular case. At the particular conditions, the heat pipe heat exchanger is the most preferred devices because of its compactness and high thermal conductivity. At present studies are focused on changing parameters of heat pipe, likewise to vary the wick structure and orientation of heat pipe and the CVR, that is a charged volume ratio of the working fluid. Then in addition to the above points, the replacement of a base fluid by better thermal conductivity fluid is one of the promising technology to improve the performance of heat pipe. That enhancing the thermal conductivity by substituting nanofluid is the smart and foremost technique used to improve the heat transport capacity of the heat pipe. Okay, and this we have already seen the construction and the working of the heat pipe, and you see here that heat in and how that liquid and that maybe a water or the working fluid in gaseous form which is moving inside the heat pipe. Okay, and these are the research gap identified after completing the thorough literature survey, and from the inference these research gaps are identified. The first point is the suspension of nanoparticles in base fluid. It will improve the performance and reduce the dry out condition of the heat pipe. The dry out condition of the heat pipe is the main thing. If the heat pipe is operating above capability, then outages happen in the heat pipe. Then previous works are done using the mesh and grooved wick heat pipe, grooved wicks in the heat pipes. Okay, that mesh and the grooved wicks are good, even though these wicks are good for to create the capillary action. That number of references with the metal powder sintered wicks, okay, that is metal powder sintering in the heat pipes are very less, even though it create very good capillary action. So in this place, that one point is very important: porosity and the permeability of the wick structure. So we know that the porosity and the permeability, these two terms are having inversely proportionality. So it is very difficult to attain these 2 points, porosity and permeable, in a single wick structure. But that that means wick structures are made up of with metal powder sintering are having very good porosity and permeability. But the number of works available with the sintered wicks are very less. Then orientation of the heat pipe is very important parameter. So if you are having any provision to provide some orientation, likewise if the heat pipe is tilting from the horizontal position to 30° or 45° inclination, then it can dissipate more amount of heat as compared with that of the horizontal position. Then comparison of effective thermal performance of heat pipes by varying the wick structure or fixed geometric and operating conditions. Okay, that means comparing the mesh sintered and the combination of mesh and sintered wick structure, the performance of heat pipe, it is analyzed at fixed geometric and operating condition. Then this point I have already explained, capillary ability and the liquid permeability. It is very difficult to attain these two parameters in a single wick structures. That's why, and that's why I developed a composite wick structure to overcome these two problems. Okay, then existing works mainly focuses on the surface temperature. Okay, normally that heat pipes, it is very difficult to measure the vapor temperature. That means vapor core area temperature in the heat pipes, because the heat pipe is an entirely sealed section. It is very difficult to measure the temperature present inside the vapor core area. So here, but mainly that heat pipe So we know that performance of heat pipe, it is measured based on Q is equal to MCP into delta T, the heat transfer equation, and Q is equal to HA into delta T value. Okay, here H is the heat transfer coefficient of the fluid what we are using. What we are using here, but that H value, it is purely depends on the fluid property, okay, not on the surface property, okay, because the surface is made up of copper, but here that H is the convection heat transfer coefficient of the working fluid. So if you want to find out the actual performance of heat pipe based on the correlation Q is equal to HA into delta T, we should use the H value, okay. So but in the previous work, this H value is not measured. Based on the assumption, okay, that is the surface temperature, it will be equal to the vapor temperature. Based on that assumption only, they have measured they have analyzed the performance of the heat pipe. Then here an attempt is made to conduct two-dimensional numerical analysis, and that results are validated as compared with that of the experimental one. Okay, and research focuses from that research cap and I studied the following parameters to analyze the performance of the heat pipe. Okay. In this work, the thermal performance of heat pipe is investigated by varying the wick structures like a mesh, sintered, and composite. That's the combination of sintered and mesh wick structure. Then, in addition to that of varying the wick structure, surfactant-free copper oxide nano fluid with three different combinations that are a 0.5, 1, and 1.5 weight fraction are used, and its performance are compared with its base fluid. Then orientation is varied from the 0 degree to 90 degree with the addition of every 15 degree. Then heat input, okay, this heat load that is fixed depends on the size of the heat pipe, and I have used it here. I have used it here 330 mm length heat pipe. Okay, so that heat pipe maximum capability, that is the capacity of the heat pipe, is calculated based on using some correlations. Then I have fixed that heat pipe, so it can carry up to 140 or 160 or 200 watt per meter. Sorry, 200 watt heat input by varying the wick structure, and that heat load is increased by varying every 10 watt of heat input. Then finally, 2D analysis, that is 2D CFD analysis, is also conducted, and that results are validated with the experimental one. Okay, and now, so what are nanofluids? I think most of you are aware about nanofluids. This term, that nanoparticle, that word comes from the Latin prefix. Nano is the prefix used to denote the 10 power minus 9 part of a unit. Okay. Actually, what is nanofluid? Okay, there is a suspension of nanoparticles. There is a nano-size particles. Nano-size means it may be vary from 5 nanometer or 10 nanometer and up to 100 or 150 nanometer. Okay, that size nanoparticles are suspended in a base fluid to improve the thermal property, that means the flow and the thermal characteristics of the working fluid. Okay, and this is the concept of nanofluid. Instead of using the conventional fluids that are available, so that are commonly used for the heat transfer applications, that are engine oil, ethylene glycol, water. So if you are suspending very high thermal conductivity nanoparticles in the base fluid, so it will increase the thermal properties. So if the thermal property of the fluid is increases, means automatically the thermal performance of the fluid, so it will also increase. So this is the concept why we are introducing the nanoparticles, especially nanofluids in the heat pipes instead of normal fluid. Okay. And there are two methods typically used to prepare the nanofluid. The methods are a two-step method and a one-step method. The first one is the two-step method. This is the commonly used method to prepare the nanofluid. Here the nanoparticles are prepared separately. Then these nanoparticles are suspended in the base fluid like a water or ethylene glycol or therminol. Okay. Then after the suspension of nanoparticle, after the mixing of the nanoparticle and the base fluid, this mixer is kept in the ultrasonicator at a particular frequency to improve the stability of the fluid. Okay. Then sometimes some surfactants are also added with the fluids to improve the stability. Okay, but that is depends on the density and thermal conductivity and maybe the morphology of the nanoparticles. And then another one method is called a single step method. Here single step method or one step method. In the one step method, that making and dispersion of the nanoparticles are also takes place simultaneously. So in this method, there are a number of methods are there, but the main one is the one step physical vapor condensation method, which is used to prepare the copper oxide ethylene glycol nanofluid. Okay, that nanofluid prepared using the single step method are having very good stability, because we can reduce the size of the nanoparticles even up to 5 nm or 10 nm by using the single step method. Okay. Then this is the method of nanofluid preparation are used on evaluation of the thermophysical properties of the nanofluid used. So first, this device is called ultrasonicator. This ultrasonicator is used to improve the stability of the nanofluid. Okay. Here I have used that copper oxide nanoparticles that is suspended in a DI water, and additionally that aluminum oxide nanoparticles that is also suspended in the DI water. These two nanoparticles performance are compared. Okay. Here both the nanoparticles concentration taken as 0.5, 1 and 1.5 weight fraction. These two fluids are prepared using two-step methods. Then in addition, that's no surfactants are added to the nanofluid, because the surfactant may affect the effective thermal conductivity of the working fluid. Then this mixer, the prepared mixer is kept in an ultrasonicator with a frequency of 40 kHz for a duration of 60 minutes to attain the good stability. Then the next one is the characterization of prepared nanofluids. First, here that HRTM and XRD characterization method, that means characterization are performed to finalize the size morphology of the nanoparticles. First, HRTM images of CEO and Al2O3 nanoparticles are shown in the figure 1. So here you see both CO and Al2O3 nanoparticles are spherical in shape, and you see here this nanoparticle size is up to 30 to 40 or sometimes up to 50 nanometer. And XRD analysis also takes place to finalize the size of the nanoparticles by using the Scarer formula. Okay, here also the size of the nanoparticles for the copper oxide nanoparticle is confirmed, that is a 39.1 nanometer, and for the aluminum oxide nanoparticles it is vary from the 40 to 50 nanometer, but both are identically same. Okay. The next one is the thermal conductivity of the nanofluid. There is the copper oxide DI water nanofluid. Here, and I have used two different technology to analyze the thermal conductivity of the nanofluid. The first experimentation is done with the hard disk thermal constant analyzer, and the second, that the same experiment is repeated with the KD2 Pro thermal analyzer. Okay, both are having the accuracy of 1% and 5%. Okay, here that increment, that means increase in thermal conductivity for 0.5, 1 and 1.58% of copper oxide nanofluids are about 0.96, 2.37 and 5.08 compared with that of the base fluid. Then stochastic and Brownian motion of particles, it is influence. Yeah, so this properties influence on the enhancement of thermal conductivity of the nanofluids. Okay. That comparison of copper oxide nanofluid thermal conductivity with Al2O3 DI water nanofluid, the results indicated in the thermal conductivity of both the nanofluids are enhanced by the addition of nanoparticles. So irrespective of particles, here that aluminum oxide and copper oxide, both the nanoparticles are increasing the thermal conductivity value. But in both the cases, a maximum of 5.08 and 4.05 increment is observed for the 1.58% of nanoparticles. So this is because of addition of the high volume or weight concentration of nanoparticles in the base fluid. It will linearly increase the thermal conductivity of the working fluid. Then dispersion of high conductivity particles will enhance the fluid thermal conductivity, and the percentage of enhancement depends on the presence of mass concentration of the nanoparticles in the base fluid. The next, dynamic viscosity. Viscosity is the one of the important parameter. Sometimes the high viscous fluid, if you are using high viscous fluid for a particular application, it may obstruct the flow and it may deteriorate the thermal performance of the operation. will be the heat transfer process. Okay, here Brookfield viscometer is used to analyze the the viscosity of the both nanofluids, copper oxide and aluminum oxide nanofluid, and that is having an accuracy of 1%. That viscosity is increases with increasing the mass concentration, because if you are adding that high volume or mass concentration nanoparticles in the base fluid, its density is increases, then automatically viscosity is increases. Then increase in viscosity for 0.51 and 1.58% of CO nanofluids or 8.91, 11.67 and 16.46% respectively. Then a maximum reduction of 54% is found for 1.58% at 80 degrees Celsius. Okay, at this point, you see that viscosity of 1.58% of is 8% of nanofluid is compared with the DI water, which is operating at 80 degrees Celsius. It shows that viscosity of the working fluid, it continuously it is drastically reduces by increasing the temperature value. Okay, that value is compared with the aluminum oxide DI water nanofluid. Then aluminum oxide DI water nanofluids are having low viscosity or attained low viscosity as compared with that of the CO nanoparticles. So this is because of the density of the aluminum oxide nanoparticles. It is almost 50% lower than that of the copper oxide nanofluids. Okay. Then surface tension. Surface tension is one of the important parameter when we are using when we are studying about some flow characteristics of any working fluid. Surface tension affect the capillary action. That capillary action is one of the important concept in the working of the heat pipe. Then addition of nanoparticles increases the solid liquid wettability and thus the capillary force. That if that solid liquid wettability is increases means automatically that capillary action, the capillary force, it will be increases. Then surface tension is measured by bubble pressure tensiometer, which is having an accuracy of 0.1%. That's a plus or minus 0.1%. And decreases with addition of CO nanoparticles. See, that surface tension is decreases with the addition of copper oxide or aluminum oxide nanoparticles. That reduction obtained for 0.51 and 1.58% of CO DI water nanofluids are 0.85%, 1.83 and 2.54%. Then high temperature reduces the surface tension value and maximum reduction of 10.05% is attained for a 1.58% at 70 degrees Celsius. Okay. Then this copper oxide performance is compared with the aluminum nanofluid. The surface tension of DI water is about 70 millinewton per mm, and it is slightly reduced with increasing the concentration of nanoparticles. Okay, that means there is no impact on the surface tension by adding very minimum, that means very low mass concentration of nanoparticles in it. The next one is the specific heat of copper oxide and aluminum oxide nanofluids. Then DSC device, which is used to measure the specific heat value. Then reduction of CP for 0.51 and 1.5% or 4.59, 8.24 and 11.71% respectively. That specific heat is increases with increasing the temperature, but that enhancement is not significant. You see in this graph, that enhancement is almost flat when we are adding the nanoparticles in the base fluid. That enhancement in the specific heat value, it is almost negligible. Then CO nanofluids with 1.58 concentration gives only 1.05 increment or 65 degrees Celsius temperature. So this study, it is conducted only up to 65 degrees Celsius temperature, because I conducted the experiment only up to 65 degrees Celsius. Then compared with Al2O3 and DI water nanofluid, you see here CO1, that means copper oxide nanofluid and Al2O3 nanofluid, both the specific heat value with respect to the temperature, almost both are similar, because the addition of nanoparticles in the base fluid, so it's not having any significant impact on its specific heat value. Okay. The next one is the solid liquid contact angle. So this is having the relationship with the surface tension. Then surface tension increases means that capillary force is increases. Okay. Then solid liquid contact angle of working fluid are measured using the contact angle goniometer. Then since the contact angles of all the samples shown are less than 90 degrees, so this means all are having the hydrophilic in nature. That addition of copper oxide nanoparticles reduces the contact angle with increasing the concentration. If the contact angle is reduces, automatically that solid liquid contact, that contact angle is reduces means automatically that surface tension between the liquid to the solid surface. Okay, so this experiment is conducted by keeping the nanofluid droplet over the copper surface, because I have used that copper metal as a outer surface of the heat pipe. Then addition of CO nanoparticles reduces the contact angle with increasing concentration. Then reduction in contact angle increases the liquid wettability over the surfaces. Okay, next, and I have also checked the stability of both the copper oxide and aluminum nanofluids by taking the sedimentation test, and also that particle size distribution analysis also conducted. You see in the first image, that aluminum oxide nanoparticles, which is kept in the first image, that is mentioned in the white color. Then copper oxide nanoparticles for the different concentration of 0.5, 1 and 1.5%, it is shown in the second figure. Okay, then there is no separation line was found during this period. Okay, this prepared mixer, this prepared nanofluid, it's kept statically for a duration of 60 days. During this period, there is no separation line was found, irrespective of the mass concentration. Then JETAS nanoJETAS. This device is used to measure the particle size distribution for nanoparticles after the experimentation was conducted. Okay. Then during this test, the size of the nanoparticles was found nearly 250 nm and 191.6 nm for the copper oxide and aluminum oxide. So it shows that the dispersion of nanoparticles in base fluid, it will not allow to take the clustering or agglomeration in the nanoparticles. Then this graph shows that combined property analysis of the nanofluid, especially the copper oxide nanofluid. Then thermal conductivity of copper oxide nanofluid increases significantly compared with other properties like density and surface tension. This shows that the density and the surface tension, both the properties are not majorly influences on the thermal performance of the nanofluid. Then density increases about 0.421, 0.842 and 1.263% for a 0.51 and 1.58% of the CODI water nanofluid. Then this is the same combined property analysis conducted with respect to increasing the temperature, and you see here dynamic viscosity, then specific heat and surface tension properties are analyzed in this graph. This temperature shows significant influence on viscosity but not much on the specific heat and the surface tension value. That means you see in the first, this red color indication that dynamic viscosity of the working fluid is gradually reduces with increasing the temperature, but the specific heat on the surface tensor, these two properties are not majorly influenced by the temperature. Increasing temperature, these properties both are not varying. The next, fabrication of heat pipe. Here there are two major steps are involving in the fabrication of heat pipe. First one is the diffusion vacuum pumping process, then leak detection process. These two processes are very important for the heat pipe fabrication. Then only that fluid injection takes place in the injector, that fluid injector. Okay. And before we are taking for the diffusion vacuum pumping and the leak detection test, that copper tube, solid copper rod and that mesh stick structure. So these are cutting into the desired sizes. Then these devices, these components are taken for the degreasing process to clean and to clean the heat pipe. Then this is taken for the deoxidation process, because once we filled the copper tube, then ends are sealed, then we don't have the provision to open and clean the heat pipe frequently. So that's why the deoxidation process is taken initially. Then it is treating with the deoxidizer, maybe with the methane, that materials are kept for these materials are mixed with the methane fluid. Then it is kept for 1 or 2 days for the deoxidation process. Okay, then these ends are sealed with the help of bracing process. Then crimping and sealing, it will be takes place. Then with the help of that diffusion vacuum pumping devices, that evacuation of the tube it will be done. Okay. Then this completed tube, okay, that end sealed tube, that is this tube is taken for the leak detection process. Okay, so here there are two number of leak detection tests are there. First, that leak detection is takes place under a low vacuum pressure. Then it is taken at high vacuum pressure. Then finally, that fluid is filling inside the heat pipe. Then end of the heat pipe is sealed using the pinching tool. Okay. Yeah. Then so this is the experimental test trick. So what I have used to analyze the performance of the heat pipe. So this is the dimension of the heat pipe. The diameter of the heat pipe is 12 mm, and the total length of the heat pipe is 330 mm. So in that 330 mm, that first 100 mm is for the evaporator section. Then second 80 mm, okay, that adiabatic section is in between that evaporator and condenser area. So it is having a length of 80 mm. Then the third part is known as a condenser unit, and which is having a length of 150 mm. Okay, so a concept is there while fixing the evaporator and condenser length of heat pipe. It should be there in the 1:1.5 ratio. You see here 100 mm of evaporator section length, and if you are fixing that 100 mm of 100 mm of evaporator length means you have to fix 150 mm. Or if you are going with the 200 mm means it should be a 300 mm. Then only that heat pipe, so it can remove the heat continuously effectively. Okay, so then this is the heat pipe fabricated. Okay, evaporator, adiabatic, and condenser section, and these are the thermocouples. You see here there are two thermocouples are attached at a particular location to measure the surface as well as the vapor temperature value. Okay, so these are the cross-sectional view of the sintered wick structure. So this is a HRTM image of the sintered wicks, and wick thickness of heat pipe is maintained at a constant value of 1 mm irrespective of the wick structure. Even for the mesh or sintered, or the combination of mesh and sintered wick structure, the wick structure thickness is maintained as a constant at 1 mm. Then operating pressure of the heat pipe, it is kept constant at 13.45 kilopascal. You see here, and if you want to boil the water in current atmospheric condition, we have to we have to heat the water up to 100 degrees Celsius. Then only the boiling will be takes place. But so this is for the 1 atmospheric pressure condition. Here you see that that working fluid is filled under a pressure of 13.45 kilopascal. At this condition, that water or nano fluid, CO or aluminum nano fluid, even it can boil at 54 or 55 degrees Celsius, because that fluid is filled under a vacuum pressure. This vacuum pressure is maintained. It is maintained as a constant irrespective of the working condition. Then copper oxide and aluminum oxide nanofluids with a quantity of 7.3 ml. So this quantity is approximately equal to saturate the entire wick structure present inside the heat pipe. It is injected into the heat pipe at the time of fluid filling. Then cross-sectional view of sintered and mesh wick structures is given here. Okay, so this is the schematic layout of experimental setup. Okay, you see here a data locker is there. That data locker, that temperature measuring sensors, the thermocouples and pressure measuring sensors are attached in the data locker. That data locker is attached to a personal computer to continuously monitoring the reading. Okay, and a thermostat unit is attached to over the condenser section. This thermostat unit, which is used to remove the heat continuously from the condenser unit. Then digital multimeter and the auto transformer is used. This auto transformer, which is used to increase the heat input constantly. Okay, I have already said that 10 watt of heat input is varying with respect to each and every readings. That heat input is maintained with the help of auto transformer and a digital multimeter unit. Okay, then that orientation of the heat pipe is varied with the help of this variable angle holder, and it is varied from 0 to 90 degree. So this is the photographic view of the experimental test rig. So what I used in NAT. Okay, so here a flow meter is attached, which is used to measure the cooling water supply to the condenser section, and the thermostat unit is used to maintain the temperature of the cooling water which is entering to the condenser unit constantly at 20 degrees Celsius. Then a data logger, multimeter, and the personal computers. These devices I have already explained you. Okay. Then finally, that 45 minutes duration is maintained between each and every readings to attain the steady state condition of the particular operation. That heat input is initially 10 watt and is stepped up to 200 watt when I have used the composite wick structure. So in the heat pipe with an increment of every 10 watt. And these are the formulas I have used to evaluate the performance of the heat pipe. Then first one is the delta TV. Okay, that's the temperature difference, vapor temperature difference. This is calculated based on vapor temperature measured in the evaporator section minus vapor temperature measured in the condenser section. Okay, then another one important parameter to evaluate the performance of heat pipe is the thermal resistance. If the thermal resistance, if it is reduces, means then automatically the heat transfer rate will be increases. Okay, this we have already studied in a heat transfer subject. Okay, then this formula is used, that is thermal resistance of heat pipe, that is the ratio between delta T divided by heat input. Then next, thermal conductivity. There are two thermal conductivities, overall and effective thermal conductivities. Then overall thermal conductivity of the heat pipe is calculated by using this formula. KHP is equal to Q divided by area into temperature difference between the two ends. Then another one parameter is the heat transfer coefficient of the evaporator and condenser section. So here I have measured that measured the temperature difference in the evaporator and condenser section at the vapor core area. That Q is the heat input and AE and AC are the area, that is the surface area of the evaporator and the condenser section respectively. Then delta TE and delta TC are the temperature difference between the surface and the vapor core area. So you see here, this is not the temperature difference between the evaporator and the condenser section. This is the temperature difference between, so surface. Okay, so you see here, two thermocouples are attached to this section. One thermocouples which is mentioned in the dotted line. Okay, this thermocouples is the thermocouple is fixed. The thermocouple is fixed in the center core area of the heat pipe. Then another one is fixed over the surface, which is used to measure the surface temperature of heat pipe. Okay. Then while we are calculating that heat transfer coefficient, these two thermocouples reading are taken into the account. Then the difference between the surface and the vapor temperature of the evaporator section, surface and vapor temperature difference of the condenser section, these are used to measure the HDC value. Then finally, thermal efficiency of the heat pipe. Then thermal efficiency, so this is common, and this is the ratio between the output by input. Here that output is the heat transfer rate and the input is the power supplied to the evaporator section. Okay. And finally, that uncertainty analysis of the heat pipe. Uncertainty, and this is depends on the kind of accurate devices what we have used in the experimentation. Okay. So this uncertainty I have attained in the experimentation. For the heat load calculation, I attained nearly 0.329, then heat flux 0.318, then for the thermal resistance calculation 0.788, and for the heat transfer coefficient 0.645, and thermal conductivity measurement 0.783, and for the thermal efficiency calculation it is somewhat high, which is about 1.716, because to measure the thermal efficiency value I have used that Orpis flow meter, so which is having a very low accuracy of plus or minus 3%. That's why that uncertainty in the thermal efficiency is somewhat high as compared with that of the other parameter. Okay. Then results and the interpretation of result. Then thermal performance study of sintered wick heat pipe is on here. Yeah, this we have already seen that heat input is varied from 10 watt to 160 watt. Then the orientation angle of the heat pipe is varied from 0 to 90 degree. Then surface and vapor temperature are recorded by using data acquisition system, so through the thermocouples. Then these experiments are repeated even after a month to confirm if there are any deviation, that is a notable changes in the heat pipe performance. Okay. The first one is the surface and vapor temperature comparison of the SWHP. There is a sintered wick heat pipe. You see here that vapor temperature are somewhat lower than the surface temperature at the evaporator section. But when you are transferred to the condenser section, that vapor temperature values are higher than that of the surface temperature. Because in the condenser section, that heat removal. Sorry, because in the evaporator section, that circumference that heating device which is having direct contact in the evaporator section, so that's why the surface temperature of the evaporator section is higher than that of the condenser section. Okay, the next temperature difference, there is a vapor temperature difference between the evaporator and condenser section, and you see here at the horizontal position for a 0-degree inclination, that vapor temperature difference is somewhat high as compared with that of other position. And when we are tilting the heat pipe up to 45-degree inclination, that best performance, okay, that is optimized performance of the heat pipe is attained at 45-degree orientation. Okay. The next one is the thermal resistance of heat pipe. The thermal resistance decreased with increasing the nanoparticles concentration up to 1 weight percentage and increases after that. So you see here for a 0.5 weight percentage, the reduction in thermal resistance is about 48.3 compared with the DI water, and the maximum reduction in thermal resistance is about 66.1 percentage is observed for the 1 weight percentage of the nanofluid. And this is continuous for the 1 and 1.58%. Okay. Then next one is the overall thermal conductivity of the heat pipe. This overall thermal conductivity is entirely different from the effective thermal conductivity. So because to measure the overall thermal conductivity, we have to account the surface area, that is the total surface area of the heat pipe. But to calculate the effective thermal conductivity, we are only taking the cross-sectional area value. Okay, that maximum thermal conductivity of 561 watt per meter degree Celsius is obtained for a heat flux of 40 kilowatt per meter square and at a tilt angle of 45 degree. Okay. Then overall thermal conductivity for varying the weight fractions, that weight fraction, by varying the weight fraction 1 weight percentage irrespective of the nanoparticles, it attained the very high overall thermal conductivity value, because when we are adding the nanoparticles more than 1 weight percentage, it leads, so it increases the it creates obstruction to the fluid flow. That means it increases the density and the viscosity of the fluid. Okay. The next one is the HTC of sintered wick heat pipe. Then HTC value is inversely proportional to the delta T. Then addition of the nanoparticles not only reduces the delta T value between the evaporator and condenser section, but also the reduction is also found in the delta T between the surface and the vapor core area. That HTC at evaporation section increases with the concentration of copper oxide nanofluids, and it attained 14.24, 28.91, 19.31% by varying the concentration. You see here that HTC value, it is maximum for when we are adding the nanoparticles at 1 weight percentage. And in the another study, by tilting that means by varying the orientation of the heat pipe, that HTC value, it attained a maximum increment of 29.4% at a 45-degree tilt angle. Okay. Then finally, the thermal efficiency of the sintered wick heat pipe. The thermal efficiency of heat pipe is found to be increases with increasing the heat flux of both DI water and the copper oxide, and as well as the aluminum oxide nanofluid. The maximum of 73.6% of thermal efficiency is attained for a 1 weight percentage of CO DI water nanofluid compared with that of the DI water, for which the efficiency is only 53.2% at the maximum heat flux and the inclination angle of 45 degree. Then when the heat input exceeds 32 kilowatt per meter square, the DI water heat pipe gets dry out, and hence the result is not shown for the heat flux for 40 kilowatt per meter square. Okay, so you see in the second figure, there is no blue color line is indicated in the second figure at a 0 weight percentage, because the DI water heat pipe operating at 40 watt per meter square heat flux, which may leads to the dry out conditions. So that's why that heat pipes are not operating at a particular situation. Okay. Then results comparison with the existing work to validate the current results. The continuous lines which are indicated, that present work is indicated in a continuous line, and that Wang et al. Study that is indicated in a dashed line. You see the trend formation of the thermal resistance of the two study comparison on both the studies. That thermal resistance is gradually reduces with increasing the heat input. Then reduction in resistance is about 33.16% is attained for 1 weight percentage of the copper oxide DI water nanofluid, because and it is for the synthetic structures. Then it also shows that synthetic wicks are having very good capillary action, because that continuous line, that present work is attained a very low thermal resistance value as compared with that of the Wang et al. And Wang et al. So he has used that inclined meshed heat pipe. So here I used that synthetic heat pipe. That's why that synthetic heat pipes are having very good capillary action because of its improved porosity and permeability values. That vacuum pressure of the present work is about 13.46 kilopascal. That is somewhat higher than that of the comparative study of 19.97 kilopascal. Then next, that the present study is compared with the Liu et al. That surface temperature of the present study is compared with the Liu et al. You see the trend formation of the surface temperature, and both are having the same trend. Then the temperature distribution of heat pipe is compared with the Liu et al. That maximum reduction is obtained at 45 degree and 75 degree inclination for the sintered and the inclined grooved heat pipe. So it shows that the inclined grooved heat pipe, it is working effectively when that heat pipe is tilted near to the vertical position. That gravitational effect plays that is a dominant role in the inclined grooved heat pipe as compared with that of the synthetic heat pipe. So that synthetic heat pipe, these heat pipes are, that means it concludes that synthetic heat pipes are good one, even that orientation of the heat pipe, even we are operating the heat pipe under low orientation, even at a 30 or 45 degree inclination. Then results comparison, the present results are compared with the Venkatachalapathy et al. Study. Okay, and it shows that thermal resistance variation, that is thermal resistance ratio variation with respect to the inclination angle. Then the porosity and the permeability of fixed structure plays a vital role in the enhancement of thermal performance of heat pipe. Then finally, I conducted that SEM and IDAX analysis of synthetic heat pipe. After that experiments are over, then wherever then that heat pipes are broken, that then that wick structure present inside the heat pipes are taken for the HRTM analysis. Then you see the thin layer. A thin layer is formed by CO nanoparticles over the synthetic structure for 1 weight percentage of copper oxide DI water nanofluid. This layer is improved. Yeah, this layer, the formation of this layer improved the capillary action of the wick structure and thus the heat transfer capacity of heat pipe. That IDAX composition, that images of synthetic surface confirms that changes in the chemical composition when the nanoparticles are added in the heat pipe. Okay, you see in the EDX analysis between the normal heat pipe, that is a normal wick structure, that is a wick structure used in a normal heat pipe and the nanofluid heat pipe, and the chemical composition of the wick structure, it is varying. Okay, this shows that additional that means nanoparticles are additionally added for the experimentation. Okay. The next, porosity and the permeability measurement of sintered and meshed heat pipe, and here two formulas are used to find out the porosity and permeability value. The permeability is the ability of the, that we know. Then it is directly related to the porosity and the average powder diameter. Here that porosity K is equal to D square into eta square divided by 150 into 1 minus eta square. For a screen meshed structure, the permeability depends on the porosity and wire diameter. It is not, yeah, it is depends on the porosity and wire diameter, and this formula is applicable for the screen meshed structure. Based on the above two equations, the permeability of mesh and synthetic heat pipes are evaluated, and by comparing these results, synthetic heat pipes are having very low permeability value as compared with that of the meshed heat pipes. Yeah, sorry. That result shows that the permeability of synthetic heat pipes are higher than that of the meshed heat pipe. The porosity is porosity is low, then permeability is high. Next, in the another study, the thermal performance of synthetic heat pipe that is compared with the using the copper oxide and aluminum oxide nanofluid at an optimum orientation of 45 degree. Okay. So you see here surface temperature distribution of both copper oxide and aluminum oxide heat pipes are compared, and the difference between the surface and vapor temperature of evaporative section is 3.9, 3.7, 2.9 and 3 degrees Celsius. And for the aluminum oxide nanofluid, 2.9 degrees Celsius, 2.7, 1.9 and 2 degrees Celsius. Okay. Contrarily, the surface and the vapor temperature difference of condenser section shows the negative result. So this is because I have already explained it. That circumferential heater which is having direct contact with the evaporator section instead of the condenser area. Okay. Then vapor temperature difference is compared to here. Okay. First, for the DI water, it is the DI water results shown in blue color line. Then for the 0.5, 1 and 1.5 of the aluminum and the CO nanoparticles are shown here. Okay. However, that irrespective of the nanofluid, that vapor temperature difference, it is gradually increasing with increasing the axial length. Okay. Then effect of inclination angle of thermal resistance. This graph shows that by increasing that inclination angle, by increasing that heat input, the thermal resistance is gradually reduces irrespective of the nanofluids what we are using. Then overall thermal conductivity value. So here the DI water heat pipe is registered the very lowest thermal conductivity values. It confirms that by adding that high conductive nanoparticles in the base fluid, it will enhances the thermal performance, especially thermal conductivity of the heat pipe. Then heat transfer coefficient of evaporator section. So this is especially taken for the experimentation here. This comparison takes place to discuss the maximum heat transfer characteristics of heat pipe at the optimum mass concentration. Both the heat pipes convective heat transfer coefficient increases with increasing the heat flux. That enhancement in HTC of evaporator section is achieved at the higher heat input of 42.4 kilowatt per meter square. This heat flux about 25.23%. And the same for on the aluminum oxide heat pipes achieved only 19.87% for the same operating condition. Okay. Then this one is the heat transfer coefficient of condenser section. You see here, by increasing the heat flux value, the HTC value is gradually increases, and this dotted line which indicates the heat pipe operating with the aluminum oxide nanofluids. Okay. Then finally, the thermal efficiency comparison of the aluminum oxide and the copper oxide nanofluid heat pipes. The thermal efficiency value for the copper oxide nanofluid heat pipe is high compared with that of the aluminum oxide heat pipe. So this is because of the copper oxide nanoparticles thermal conductivity value which is higher than that of the aluminum oxide nanoparticles. Then effect of its structure on thermal performance of heat pipe. Okay, so here mesh sintered under the combination of mesh and sintered wick, there is a composite wick heat pipe performance are analyzed. The surface temperature distribution of all three heat pipes are shown in this figure. You see composite wick with the DI water, then composite wick with 1 weight percentage of the nanofluid, then sintered wick and the mesh wick heat pipe which are operating. These three heat pipes are operating with 1 weight percentage of nanoparticles are taken for the comparison. Then this was the thermal resistance of heat pipe. You see here that composite wick heat pipe which is operating with 1 weight percentage of copper oxide nanoparticles are registered the very lowest thermal resistance value at irrespective of the inclination angle. You see in all these 6 figures that the thermal resistance of composite wick with 1 weight percentage of CO nanofluid registered the lowest value. Likewise, in the previous graph, that's lowest surface temperature it was attained by the composite wick with 1 weight percentage in all the figures you see here. Okay, then HTC of heat pipes and HTC of heat pipes operating operating with a composite wick and that means composite made up of composite wick and 1 weight percentage of CO nanofluids registered the highest HTC value at the evaporator as well as in the condenser section. Then next, effective thermal conductivity comparison of composite wick heat pipes. That effective thermal conductivity of the heat pipe rises up to 53. That is a 53,520 watt per meter degree Celsius for the heat pipe operating with a combined sintered and Nesquik heat pipe at 1 weight percentage and 45 degree inclination angle. Okay. Then this one is the analysis of wick structure. Yeah. So this one is the analysis of wick structure for a mesh and sintered wick. Yeah, sintered wicks. Okay. Then figure represents the SEM and the optical microscope images of sintered and mesh wick structures. Then heat pipes with the DI water wick, wick surfaces are clean and do not have any pores or particle deposition over the surface. So this first A1, B1 and C1. This image shows that So these images are taken from the heat pipe is filled with the DI water, and the second A2, B2, C2. These images are taken from the heat pipe which is filled with the nanofluids. Then heat pipe with the DI water wick surface are clean and do not have any pores over the surface. But by the use of CO nanoparticles leads to the formation of a thin porous coating layer. You see in the B2 image. Okay, so the B1 image is very clear. There is a mesh wick structure image is very clear. But in the B2 image, that the use of CO nanoparticles in the base fluid, it will create some pores over the wick structure. This figure C shows the pore size of the sintered wick is larger than the mesh wick structure. Okay, so if the pore size is high, means it can allow more amount of fluid to flow over it. Okay. The next one is the two-dimensional numerical analysis of sintered wick heat pipe. That results are validated with the experimental results. Then these are the assumptions made that flow is a laminar and incompressible fluid flow. Then all thermophysical properties are assumed constant except that vapor density, so which is computed from the operating pressure. Then the entire heat pipe region are insulated except the evaporator and the condenser top of the wall. Okay, these are the assumptions made to conduct the two-dimensional analysis. Okay, then this is the surface temperature comparison of numerical and experimental analysis, and both are shown that numerical results, the trend formation that results are taken from the numerical values are almost similar to the experimental one. Then that maximum deviation is occurred at condenser section due to the non-uniform cooling effect. So while we are conducting the experimentation, naturally that heat dissipation from the condenser section it is not uniform. So this is because of the climate varying. Even if you are starting to do the experimentation in the morning 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock, that operating temperature in the surrounding which is only about 25 degrees Celsius. But if you are doing the same experimentation in the afternoon or in a noon 12 o'clock or maybe in a 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock, then that operating temperature of the cooling water, it may be increases. Okay, then pressure distribution of the heat pipe. Then pressure contour of the heat pipe along its axial length for CO nanofluid. Pressure contour for the heat pipe along with its axial length for DI water and 1 weight percentage of the nanofluid, both are shown here. You see here the pressure distribution. Pressure distribution for the 1 weight percentage of the nanofluid. So that is somewhat low as that is somewhat high as compared with that of the normal DI water filled working fluid, filled heat pipe. Then the pressure distribution curve is formed in the negative direction because that heat pipe is working under vacuum pressure. Okay. Then lowest gauge pressure is obtained for a heat pipe working with copper oxide nanofluids. Then addition of nanoparticles reduces the local pressure because of the reduction in the temperature value. Then pressure drop in the case of nanofluid is more than the base fluid, as the addition of nanoparticles increases the viscosity as well increases the density as well as the viscosity. It gives restriction to the fluid flow. Then axial velocity distribution of sintered wick heat pipe. Then you see this is the axial velocity value, it is taken in the x-axis, then radial distance it is taken in the y-axis, and this is the starting point, and the radius of the heat pipe is about 6 mm. Okay, the diameter of the heat pipe is 12 mm, and so here that radius is taken, radius is only taken here. Okay, and you see here that axial velocity is maximum at the center core area of the heat pipe, and it tends to gradually reduces when it travels towards the surface area of the heat pipe. Okay, and even though that velocity it is mentioned in the negative direction, here you see here the velocity of the fluid is mentioned in the negative direction, so it indicates that fluid which is from the condenser to the evaporator section by the way of capillary, that means by the way of wick structure. Then the thermal resistance of sintered wick heat pipe, that is numerical and experimental results are compared. Then 1 weight percentage of the copper oxide nanofluids, that is the heat pipe filled with 1 weight percentage of the copper oxide nanofluids, it registered the lowest thermal resistance value. And you see here in the red color line for the experimental results, it that means that heat pipe is operating under a horizontal position is not indicated in the graph. This is because of that heat pipe is filled with the DI water and operating at horizontal position is attained. It reaches the dry out condition when operating at a 0 degree inclination. Okay, then next, thermal conductivity comparison. So you see here the thermal conductivity is also high for the heat pipe operating with the copper oxide nanofluid with 1 weight percentage, and numerical results, it 8,000, it attained a maximum of 48,000 watt per meter Kelvin. Okay, and next, that mechanism of the engagement in heat transfer of heat pipe heat exchanger. First one main important point is the dispersion of nanoparticles in the base fluid, which increases the thermal conductivity of the working fluid. Then thermal conductivity of the working fluid increases means it will leads to increase in the thermal conductivity of, that is effective thermal conductivity of the heat pipe. But the excess amount of nanoparticles present, okay, even we are suspending, if you are suspending the nanoparticles above the 1 weight percentage, that excess amount of nanoparticles present in the base fluid increases the density and the viscosity value, and it creates resistance. That means it obstructs the resistance, it creates the resistance to the fluid flow. Then it automatically leads to the deterioration in the performance of the heat pipe. That's why the heat pipe filled with the 1.5 weight percentage, it deteriorate the performance of heat pipe. Then copper oxide nanoparticles or aluminum oxide nanoparticles that is deposited over the wick structure, it forms a thin porous layer over the surface, which increases the solid liquid wettability, and also it increases the capillary action. Then inclination angle of the heat pipe increases the rate of condensation of liquid in the condenser section. Okay, so if you are tilting the heat pipe towards the vertical position, then that amount of working fluid, which is, that means contact of working fluid with the surface area of the condenser section, it will be increases. Then automatically that rate of heat transfer from the condenser section is also increases. Then thus take the more amount of liquid flow to the evaporator section. Then larger tilt angle. Okay, even if you are tilting that sintered wick heat pipe after 45 degree inclination, that closer to the vertical position result in the deterioration of performance. It is due to the faster condensate returns which affect the function of the evaporator section. The next, the Brownian motion of the nanoparticles improves when the temperature increases. So this is also against the convective heat transfer property of the working fluid. Okay. And during heating process, the nanoparticles suspended in the working fluid bombard the bubbles when they are produced in the evaporator section. So therefore, the nucleation size of the bubbles become much smaller, which in turn reduces the thermal resistance of the heat pipe. Then higher nucleate site formation is obtained in sintered wick heat pipe because of its having high porosity when compared with that of the mixed wick heat pipe. And the final conclusion, that heat transfer capacity of the heat pipe increases with the addition of any high conductive nanofluid, not only the copper oxide nanoparticles. If you are adding that pure copper nanoparticles or aluminum oxide or silicon oxide nanoparticles. So this thermal conductivity value or silver oxide nanoparticles, anything. Okay, if you are adding high thermal conductivity nanoparticles in the base plate, it will increase the thermal performance of heat pipe. A reduction is observed in the vapor temperature difference between the evaporator and condenser section by the replacement of DI water with copper oxide nanofluid. Then the change of fixed structure shows noticeable changes, there is a variation in the performance of heat pipe at horizontal position as well as for the inclined positions. The composite wick delayed the dry out condition of heat pipe compared with the mesh wick and sintered wick heat pipe. This is because of the when we are combining the sintered and mesh wick heat pipes, the porosity values increases as compared with the mesh and sintered wick heat pipe. Then additionally, the optimum inclination angle and weight percentage of the copper oxide nanoparticles are found for the sintered mesh and composite wick heat pipes. That optimum tilt angle is 45 degree for the sintered and composite wick heat pipes, whereas it is a 60 degree for a mesh wick heat pipe. So, yeah, 60 degree for the mesh wick heat pipe, and irrespective of the optimum weight percentage. Okay, this is same optimum mass concentration is same irrespective of the nanoparticles. Then primarily the physical phenomenon of copper oxide and aluminum oxide nanoparticles plays a major role in the thermal enhancement of heat pipe. The suspension of both the nanoparticles reduces the solid liquid contact angle. It increases the capillary force of liquid from the condenser to evaporator section. On the other hand, the surface characteristics of the wick structure are modified by adding copper oxide and aluminum oxide nanoparticles. The settling down of nanoparticles over the wick structure, it improves the porosity of wicks, which enhances the solid liquid wettability. And the heat transfer coefficient is increases by adding the nanoparticles and at an inclination angle of 45 degree and operating at a high heat flux value. Then the thermal efficiency of the heat pipe filled with copper oxide nanoparticles obtained at a maximum percentage of 30.42 for the optimum weight fraction of 1%, whereas the aluminum oxide heat pipe reaches its maximum value of 26.17 for its optimum concentration of 1.58%. Then it is found that thermal characteristics of the sintered wick heat pipe dramatically improved not only by the suspension of nanoparticles in the base plate, but also by the deposition of nanoparticles over the wick structure, which enhances the solid liquid wettability of the working fluid. Then the increase in heat transfer capacity of sintered wick heat pipe is about 31.2% for 1 weight percentage of copper oxide nanofluid and 45 degree inclination compared with that of the horizontal position. Then this HTC is increased with the nanoparticle concentration on tilt angle, and for the sintered wick heat pipe, it attained a optimum value, that is a maximum value at 45 degree inclination. Then the thermal conductivity of heat pipe increases with the use of nanoparticles and increasing the concentration. That maximum enhancement is registered for 1 weight percentage of nanofluid, and that value is 63.5%. Then the pressure at the evaporator section is maximum, and it gradually reduces while moving towards the condenser section. Moreover, the addition of copper oxide nanoparticles reduces the local pressure of the heat pipe compared with the base fluid. Then the axial velocity of vapor flow is high, that is highest value of the axial velocity is registered at the center core area of the heat pipe, and it is 0 at the surface of the wick. Okay. Then these are the advantages of using the nanofluids, particularly not only for the heat pipes in a heat transfer applications. Okay. Then these are the limitations of nanofluid. Then where we can use the nanofluid, that studies of nanofluids reveals that high thermal conductivities and heat transfer coefficient compared to that of the conventional fluids. These characteristic features of nanofluids make them suitable for the next generation of flow and heat transfer fluids. Pioneering nanofluids research has inspired physicists, chemists, and engineers around the world. And these are the publications and the citations achieved by me based on the research work. Yeah. So thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Kumaresan. Dear participants, if you have any questions, you can ask, or any clarifications, please.
Yeah, guys, if you have any doubt, you feel free to ask me. Okay. Okay, you know that the usage of heat pipe it is very essential for the confined spaces. Okay, even that electronic devices, our maybe if that laptop old one or maybe a new one which is in a nano laptops, all are having the heat pipe. Maybe that size of the heat pipe which may vary. So very depends on the conditions. Maybe that new laptops are having very thin heat pipes. However, that each and every laptop unit are manufactured with a heat pipe, and these are the one of the best device to dissipate the heat from a very small areas. Okay, so that's why the heat pipes are mainly used in the electronic devices.
Okay, sir. Seems like nobody's turning on. Let's move on to the Thanksgiving session.
Yes.
Okay, good afternoon, all. For the last 1 hour, we have been listening to the lecture session on the topic heat dissipation in confined spaces using heat pipes, delivered by Dr. Kumaresan G from Bannariamman Institute of Technology, Tamil Nadu. The session was really interesting and quite informative. Hope you all enjoyed it. On behalf of the Department of Mechanical Engineering, Jyoti Engineering College, we express our sincere thanks to Dr. Kumaresan G for sparing his valuable time from his busy schedule and delivering such an informative session. Thank you, sir.
Yes. So thank you for all. If you have any doubt related to the research, if you are anybody working in this area, so you please feel free to contact me, and you just send me a message. Yeah, to this mail ID. I always welcome. Okay. So thank you all. Thank you very much, Devan Raj sir and other coordinators. Thank you for giving me a chance to interact with the young researchers. Yes. So again, thank you all. See you.
Thank you, sir. Okay, for the last 2 days, we have been listening to the workshop sessions on thermal management of electronics organized by the Department of Mechanical Engineering, Jyoti Engineering College, in association with IST and AIMS. The first day sessions were handled by Dr. Ajit Krishnan R and Dr. Uday Kumar G, both from Kookmin University, South Korea. And day 2 sessions were handled by Dr. Praveen B, PhD scholar from NIT Trichy, and Dr. Kumaresan G from Bannariamman Institute of Technology, Tamil Nadu. All the sessions were really interesting and informative. On behalf of Department of Mechanical Engineering, Jyoti Engineering College, we express our sincere thanks to all the speakers for sparing their valuable time from their busy schedule and delivering such informative sessions. Thank you, sir. Next, we would like to thank the head of the department, principal, and the management of Jyoti Engineering College for extending all facilities and its support for the successful completion of this workshop. Lastly, I extend my sincere thanks and gratitude to each and every participant, both external and internal, for joining this venture and making it a grand success. Thank you all for registering and attending the sessions. We expect your sincere participation in our future programs as well. Regarding the certificates, participation e-certificates will be distributed to all the attended participants via email, hopefully within a week. Thank you. Have a great day.